it or not, we found a bench here in the nation's capital. But more importantly, we found a guest who's going to keep you glued to your seats. The man with the same name twice, Miguna. You know him as the founder, leader of the National Revolutionary Movement in Kenya. He was also senior policy advisor to the former Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga. And yes, he's a barrister, he's a solicitor, and an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. More importantly, he is the man who swore in the former Prime Minister as the People's President on January 30th, 2018. 2 days later, all hell broke loose for this man. By the way, recently the High Court ruled that Miguna can have his passport back, his Kenyan one, and some change, about 7 million or so, but none of that has actually been forthcoming. Miguna's story today, like you've never heard. Sit back. Miguna is on the bench.
Very good. You've really improved.
You know, a couple of times before when I introduced you, I forgot the barrister, I'd forget the solicitor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'd forget one or two things.
The ornaments.
The ornaments. And deserved as well. But now I'm okay.
You're good. You're good to go.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I don't have a mic. They're hearing me?
Look at this.
Oh, I have a mic. Wow. I mean, you just put it there like a fly.
Before you knew it. So, Miguna,
yes.
You know, you have been through hell. Let's face it. You have been through hell and back. And I think I first want to take us back to that time before we can talk about the present.
Okay.
So let's go back. You swear in. Let's go to the swearing in. Yes. January 30th, 2018. And we've heard all kinds of stories about that day. That the other principals were told to keep away. Nobody wanted to be anywhere near the park for fear of being arrested. You are the man who swore in Raila Amolo Odinga as the People's President. You. Why?
Why? Because it was the right thing to do, and still the right thing to do. We had a fraudulent election on August 8th, 2017. It is indisputable. It's a fact, because the Supreme Court found it to be so. And many objective observers, Kenyans and foreigners, also agree that the way that the election had been conducted was fraught with illegalities, irregularities, and McRae King that could not pass the legitimacy test. So...
an election where you voted for Uhuru Kenyetta?
I did, but I ran as an independent candidate.
But you voted for him?
I did in that election, and that's the only time I voted for Uhuru Kenyetta. A lot of people keep on saying I voted for him in 2013. I actually did not vote in 2013. I was not even a registered voter in 2013. So in 2017, on August 8th, I voted for him. I did not vote again on October 26th. There was no election. And the reason being is that Raila disappointed me badly when I worked as his advisor. He betrayed me. He kicked me to the curb. He betrayed Kenyans' aspirations. I had hoped that he would be able, number one, not to surrender to Kibaki in 2007, because he had won that election too.
He won it?
He won that election. So I maintain that he won that election. And Raila should never have surrendered. If you are right, and if you win an election, you should never surrender to the person who has not won. Just because he has guns, or he has more money, or he has rallied support on his side, Annan and the rest had convinced him that Kenya was bigger and that we were going to be able to transform the state and the institutions, get a new constitution so that this would not happen again. 2007 would not happen again. Well, he didn't do that. And I kept reminding him, this thing will come back to bite you. Let's do everything that we said we were going to do. Let's make sure that we wrestle impunity and we ensure that Kenyans we'll have a real democracy and that no election would be stolen again. He never did anything. So now when we get a new constitution, I told him as his advisor that we should get a parliamentary federal system. We could restructure the state and make sure that equity gets to the people. Again, Raila supported the presidential system with Orengo, Otieno Kajwang. They told me I did not understand the value of the presidency, that only him alone as Raila Odinga being president would bring equity. I told him you cannot make a constitution for you because you're a human being just like everybody else. You can die, your worst enemy could become president. And I told him, let's do this constitution as if we are doing it for Ruto, because at the time he had already fallen out with Ruto. I told him, let's do it for your worst enemy, your worst nightmare. Let's restrain the presidency and the president so that they cannot abuse power, including yourself. Because there will be a president, even if you become one, after you. He never listened to me. In 2017, I had had it with Raila Odinga. But despite my knowledge, despite me not supporting him, I was in the elections. I was a gubernatorial candidate in Nairobi. I saw how the elections were conducted. I knew he won. Okay?
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to challenge me as to why I say so, let them open the servers, the IEB servers. Let's audit it independently, forensically. So the reason why I decided to swear Raila in, coming back to that,
yes,
is that I was not doing this for myself. I was not doing it out of spite. I was not doing it because I wanted Uhuru or somebody else to be president. I was doing it for electoral justice. The same reason why I had vied as an independent candidate. I did not go to ODM. I did not join Jubilee. I opposed Jubilee's candidate, who was Sonko, and opposed Raila and ODM's candidate, who is Evans Kidero.
Why you, though? People ask, why are you the one who swore Raila as the people's president?
Okay, so to cut a long story short, I founded the NRM. A lot of people will tell you I didn't, but they don't know where the strategy was done. I formed a think tank called the Final Stand, and I recruited thinkers and strategists into this Final Stand think tank, including David D, was a member of my think tank, all right? Including Waika Wanyoike, a lawyer, including Abubakar Zain, including Dr. Njoya, including many, many people. Immediately after the election, I did that immediately after the election, and we used to meet, and we met frequently, and I was coordinating the group. And we came up with a strategy of how do we make sure we stop these guys from perpetuating impunity. What I mean is Uhuru Kenyetta and his group, Ruto, Uhuru Kenyetta, Raila Odinga, because we knew that even if we were able to stop Uhuru Kenyetta from pursuing this route, we were not safe with Raila Odinga either. This is a recognition many people have. So how are we going to make sure that we stop Uhuru, but we also stop anybody else, including Raila, from doing the same thing? So say, for example, we had developed a strategy, a two-pronged strategy. One, the People's Assembly strategy emerged from this group. We mobilized people through the People's Assembly, which would be a public display of disaffection with the government and also rallying them to a just cause. But at the time, of course, doing it in collaboration with the NASA, because NASA had contested an election and Raila and NASA had won. So we wanted to do that. So you give legitimacy to a real winner, all right? Use that platform to be able to make Kenyans politically conscious in order to liberate them. The second prong was to found and lead a liberation movement, because Kenya is not liberated. Kenya got flags and a national anthem, ornaments, but real independence is not there. Mine was an army of freedom fighters. We fight using words. You don't have to use guns.
Okay, so during all this...
So why was I the one to swear
coming back to because there were other players.
There were other players. They all refused to swear Raila in. Orengo had said he would get a retired judge. Then at the last minute, you remember there were many postponements.
Yes.
Some of those postponements were mainly because Raila was not really for the swearing in.
Because there was a Tanzania version, remember?
No, there was no Tanzania version. This only came after the fact. When people were now explaining, they were trying to tell Kenyans, mislead them. People like Ndi were trying to mislead Kenyans that I wanted Raila to be sworn abroad. That's not entirely true. It's only partly true. We and I came up with strategies of how we were going to make this work. And I said, because as a lawyer and as somebody who is a student of history, you can only be guided by history. Just months before, Adama Barrow in Gambia had won an election. And the president there, the dictator, Yahya Jammeh, had refused to leave power. Adama Barrow did not surrender. He went to Senegal. He mobilized the international community. He got sworn in Gambian embassy in Senegal, Dakar. He came back. He got into power. Ouattara in Cote d'Ivoire, who is supposed to be Raila's president, got into power by refusing to concede to the Bagbo, because Bagbo refused. He got himself into a resort, said that was his headquarters, and started fighting for what he believed was just. And he's now the president, now twice. So I told Raila, there is no reason why, if we can't have you sworn in Kenya, we cannot go to Tanzania. You say that Magufuli is your best friend. And you also say Akufo-Addo, or the president of Ghana, is your best friend. Talk to them. Let's see if they can accommodate us. Because between having hundreds of thousands or thousands of people being killed in Nairobi, if that was going to be, and having you sworn in a neighboring country or another country, we would rather do that. I also advised him to form his cabinet and send representatives to the UN, to the AU, try to mobilize and rally the world community. That's how you get power. You don't get power by sitting in Nairobi and holding press conferences. So if he are doing that. So I told him that we can also do it in Kenya. We can do it at Uhuru Park. We can do it at any other place other than Uhuru Park. But provided that we have hundreds of thousands of people to 1 million or more, because you cannot shoot 1 million people. So eventually, they decided that we were going to do it in Nairobi. All right?
Yeah.
But when he approached people to swear him in, he told me himself. They refused. So he told me, you know, this was the 4th swearing in. The first swearing in was supposed to take place privately in Jimmy Wanjigi's house. All right?
You mean recorded?
Recorded,
yes,
but beamed live to the world, and nobody would know where we are doing it.
Yes.
But you can get a live feed.
From anywhere?
From anywhere. We had the cameras ready, rolling, and everything. We had
Wanjigi's house?
In Wanjigi's house. And Raila came late, and then played games on us, left, said that he had spoken with Mudavadi and Wetangula, that they asked for more time. And within a short time, we saw Kivutha Kibwana and some other people addressing a press conference that it had been cancelled. Now, I asked myself, if Raila had been serious, Kivutha Kibwana had to come from Makueni, which is quite a distance. They had to prepare the press statement. They had to meet. This did not happen within minutes of us trying to swear him in. So the man had just grown cold feet. All right?
That was the first one?
The first one. The second one was Mombasa. Raila calls me that the People's Assembly in Kilifi. I was in my house, and he says that Orengo told him that I had given up. I decided not to. I said, no, Orengo never told me that. He never asked me to come to Kilifi. Nobody invited me. Nobody told me anything. So I didn't even know you were going to Kilifi. I knew there was a People's Assembly in Kilifi, but I'd been to the one in Vihiga, I'd been to the one in Kakamega, I'd been to other People's Assembly. I didn't have to attend every single one of them. And so he says, I want you to come here and swear me here. Because people, particularly the women, are wild. They want me sworn in now. So I say, well, then you have to book immediately, and because otherwise I wouldn't make it. That was around 10 o'clock. So by the time we finished, I changed and took a taxi. And by the time I reached the CBD, he tells me to go to Wilson. That a guy called Jeff, who is his, one of his guys who does the bookings, had booked a flight for me from Wilson. So I went to Wilson. And when I reached Mombasa, he sent his driver to pick me up. I could tell right away that the security apparatus were all over the place watching me. They locked the roads. I couldn't move right from the airport. We had to make detours through the port and Kichorochoros until we reached Mtwapa. On the way, Joho claimed that he had sent a vehicle. He's one of his security vehicles to pick me up so that they could clear the traffic so that I could reach on time. That was a mistake. Because whereas the police may not have known where we were, now Joho sent a vehicle that he had already told the police to stop. So when I reached Mtwapa, they threw the roadblock. So then the third one was at his home.
Karen.
2 days before Tuesday, all right? Before the 30th.
Yep.
A Sunday. The Sunday before the 30th, I swore him in. This one took place.
You actually swore him in?
Yes, privately. And that is the first time we invited people like Kajwang to attend, just to be spectators to the swearing in. Kajwang was never involved in the discussions.
Were there any cameras?
There were cameras. It was recorded live. We did it just like we did it in Uhuru Park.
Where is this footage?
Orengo was standing next to him. Yeah. I was standing on his right side, Orengo on his left side. He took the oath, and I commissioned it.
Where's the footage?
Oh, he has it. It was done by the NASA TV that is headed by his son. The Maasai guy is a photojournalist and he's also a videographer. He's the one who actually videoed the thing.
So you did the whole ceremony in his house?
We did the whole ceremony in his house, just in case that on the 30th of January, the security agencies stop us from conducting this ceremony anywhere else. It was not just going to be Uhuru Park. If they had disrupted us in Uhuru Park, we were going to do it anywhere else that we were able to congregate.
Tell me something. Were the other principals at this swearing in?
No, they were not.
Mudavadi, Wetangula, Kalonzo?
No. None of the so-called NASA bigwigs were there. We knew they were not coming. Raila knew they had said they were not coming. I had been taken to Mudavadi's office to convince Mudavadi. I got along with Mudavadi fairly well. He actually part of the people who contributed to my campaign. And I spoke with Mudavadi at length and tried to explain why he should come to the swearing in. And Mudavadi's last words were that, you know, Miguna, I'm a conservative and I believe in the system. So, and he left.
On the 30th,
yes,
none of the principals were at Uhuru Park. Why?
Well, only they can talk about it. All I know is that they were not supporting the swearing in. They had chickened out. I think it was probably fear, cowardice. Because they wanted power. Otherwise, they would not have been in NASA campaigning against Uhuru, going to an election. And they campaigned throughout the country. They went to Homa Bay days before the swearing in and swore on the Bible that they were going to be at Uhuru Park. Raila even declared that he was ready to die. But when push comes to shove, they never showed up. They were not ready to die.
I remember your words. You said you're going to swear in Raila whether he likes it or not. What did you mean by that?
I meant that Kenya had and has reached a stage where power cannot be obtained through guns by force. That we've struggled to make Kenya's democracy work, and that it would be a crime, a very bad crime against humanity, to impose leaders on Kenyans and invalidate their votes.
But then,
all right?
Okay,
hold on. And
Yes.
Magufuli, Raila called Orengo in my presence when we had gone, me, Mudama, and Orengo had gone to Mudama's resort to discuss the swearing in. Raila calls, Orengo picks up, and Raila puts Orengo to Magufuli so that Orengo could explain to Magufuli the reasons why we are insisting on the swearing in and why Magufuli believes that we shouldn't go ahead with it.
Okay, a moment ago you said they agreed with Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yes.
Are you trying to say that the whole handshake thing had been agreed upon before?
Yes.
Hold that thought, Miguna.
Yes.
Hold that thought. Goodness gracious me. This is revealing. I told you, this guest, Miguna, is going to keep you glued to your seats. He says the handshake was prearranged. Oh, by the way, did I mention that Miguna has a new book out? You need to read it. It's called Treason, The Case Against Tyrants and Renegades. It is out now, folks.
It is in Kenya.
And it is available in Kenya. Jeff Koinange Live takes a break. Plenty more ahead. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff, at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag, as always, is JK Live. JK Live takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.